I'm Allison Turner, 32, and despite building a seven-figure business from scratch, I'm still the family disappointment. Standing on the porch of my parents' Connecticut mansion for our annual Thanksgiving dinner, I clutch my laptop bag like armor. Inside are the final contracts for the biggest deal of my career. Yet all I feel is dread. My siblings' cars, all luxury models, line the circular driveway, reminding me I'm walking into a battlefield, not a family gathering. Something in my gut tells me this dinner will be worse than usual. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from? Hit that subscribe button and join me on this emotional roller coaster about family, success, and finally standing up for yourself. The Turner family legacy weighs like a boulder on my shoulders. My father, Robert Turner, built his reputation as one of the Northeast's most prestigious neurosurgeons. His patients include celebrities and politicians. His research is published in medical journals worldwide, and his name graces a wing at Boston Memorial Hospital. My mother, Catherine, comes from old money and channels her energy into organizing charity galas that are the highlight of Connecticut's social calendar. Together, they created a standard of success that feels impossible to match. My older brother James followed perfectly in Dad's footsteps. At 36, he's already being groomed to take over the department at the same hospital. People call him Turner 2.0 and beam with pride when mentioning we're related. My sister Emma, 34, married Jonathan Blackwell, whose family owns half the real estate in 3 counties. She doesn't work, but sits on 7 charity boards and has the picture-perfect Instagram life our mother always wanted. Then there's Stephanie, my younger sister at 30, who became a pediatric surgeon and still managed to have twins who are already being scouted for child modeling. And then there's me. I was supposed to be a surgeon too. I made it through pre-med and 2 years of medical school before I realized I was living someone else's dream. The panic attacks started during my hospital rotations, the crushing chest pain, the inability to breathe, the feeling that I was drowning in expectations. When I told my parents I was dropping out, my father didn't speak to me for 6 months. My mother cried as though I had died. "You're throwing away everything we've built for you," she had sobbed dramatically at the family dinner where I announced my decision. What will we tell our friends? I used my medical school loan money to start a medical staffing platform connecting traveling nurses with hospitals experiencing shortages. The idea came from watching overwhelmed nurses during my rotations. For the first 2 years, I lived on ramen and coffee, coding until 3 a.m. in my tiny studio apartment. No one in my family asked about my business. At holiday gatherings, my progress was treated as a temporary diversion before I came to my senses and returned to medicine. When my company, NurseFlex, secured its first hospital contract, I called my parents. My mother answered, listened for 45 seconds, then said, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear James is publishing in the New England Journal of Medicine next month?" By year 3, NurseFlex was operating in 15 states. By year 5, we'd expanded to 50 hospitals and had a staff of 28. Still, at family gatherings, the conversation revolved around James's surgical innovations, Emma's charity fundraisers, and Stephanie's perfect work-life balance. My achievements existed in a parallel universe, unacknowledged in the Turner family narrative. Running a little website, my father called it. Though we'd crossed the $10 million revenue mark last year. 2 months ago, HealthStream, one of the largest healthcare technology companies in the country, approached me about acquiring NurseFlex. The negotiations had been intense and all-consuming. Just yesterday, we'd finalized the terms, a deal that would change my life forever. I hadn't told my family yet, half hoping to announce it at Thanksgiving dinner, half knowing they'd find a way to diminish it. My assistant Rebecca had been my rock through the negotiation process. Just before I left for my parents' house, she called to tell me there were last-minute paperwork issues that needed my signature. I might need to bring them by later, she'd said. The legal team needs everything signed tonight. Just text me first, I'd replied, not knowing how perfectly timed her interruption would be. Standing outside my childhood home, I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I was no longer the insecure girl desperate for validation. I was Allison Turner, CEO and founder. But family has a way of stripping away your adult armor, leaving you vulnerable in all the old familiar places. The heavy oak door swung open before I could ring the bell. My mother stood there in a cashmere sweater and pearls, her face already set in a familiar expression of mild disappointment. "Allison, you're late. Everyone's already here." She air-kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "And jeans? Really?" I was wearing designer jeans that cost more than some people's monthly rent, paired with a silk blouse and blazer, standard CEO attire. But in the Turner household, anything less than formal wear was considered slovenly. "Hi, Mom. Happy Thanksgiving." I stepped into the marble foyer, immediately enveloped by the scent of roasting turkey and something less tangible, the suffocating pressure of expectations. The living room was a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. Crystal glasses clinked as relatives exchanged pleasantries. My father held court near the bar, regaling my Uncle Philip and Cousin Taylor with what was undoubtedly a story about a miraculous surgery. "There she is." My Aunt Susan spotted me first. "The businesswoman. Still playing with your little computer program?" Before I could answer, my brother James approached, champagne flute in hand. "Hey, workaholic. Didn't think you'd make it. Figured you'd be too busy with your..." He waved his hand vaguely. "Startup thing." "It's not a startup anymore, James. We're in our 7th year with operations in all 50 states. I accepted a glass of wine from a passing server." Right. He nodded absently, already looking over my shoulder for more interesting conversation. Emma glided over, perfect in her red dress and statement necklace. "Allison, love the casual look." Her eyes swept over my outfit. "Jonathan and I just got back from Paris. You should really take some time off. All work and no play, you know the saying." She fluttered her fingers, showing off a new diamond the size of a small country. I smiled tightly. The business is at a critical point. We're actually in the middle of... Auntie Allie. Stephanie's twins, Madison and Mason, crashed into my legs, saving me from having to finish my sentence. My sister followed close behind, somehow immaculate despite having 5-year-olds. "You look tired," she said by way of greeting. "I've been on call for 48 hours and still managed a blowout. I can recommend my stylist if you want." "Thanks, but I'm good." I crouched down to hug the twins, grateful for their uncomplicated affection. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another message from Rebecca about the contracts. I quickly texted back that I'd call her after dinner. As we moved toward the dining room, I noticed extended family members I hadn't seen in years. Uncle George, who always asked if I was still playing with computers. Cousin Whitney, who made sure to mention her husband's law partnership within 30 seconds of any conversation. My grandfather Harold, who still asked when I was going back to medical school. As if the last decade hadn't happened. "Allison," my father finally acknowledged me with a curt nod. "Didn't see you come in." "Hi, Dad. How are you?" "Busy. Important busy." He emphasized the word as if to distinguish it from whatever I did with my time. "The governor asked me to consult on the new hospital funding initiative." "That's great. Actually, I've been working on something significant too. My company is..." "James, come tell your grandfather about the laser technique you pioneered." My father turned away mid-sentence, leaving me standing alone with my unfinished news. As we gathered around the massive dining table, I noticed the seating arrangement. My parents sat at the heads of the table. James, Emma, and Stephanie and their spouses occupied the places of honor near our parents. I was seated near the far end, between my elderly Aunt Doris, who was hard of hearing, and Cousin Ryan, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words to me in the last decade. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca. Documents finalized. Need your signature ASAP. Can I bring them over? I texted back, family dinner. We'll call when I can step away. As the first course was served, my mother tapped her glass. Before we begin, I'd like to share some family news. James has been nominated for the Lasker Award for his research. A chorus of congratulations erupted. Emma and Jonathan have pledged $1 million to the children's wing renovation. More applause. And Stephanie has been asked to lead the new pediatric surgical unit while raising those beautiful children. Adoring glances were cast at my sister. There was a pause, and for a moment, I thought my mother might mention me. Instead, she smiled and said, "Let's eat before the food gets cold." The slight was so expected that I barely felt the sting. I took a sip of wine and prepared for 3 hours of being invisible. The dinner table confrontation. The Turner family Thanksgiving table was a masterpiece of upper-class New England tradition. Bone china that had belonged to my great-grandmother gleamed under the chandelier light. Sterling silver flatware flanked each setting, arranged with military precision. The centerpiece featured an elaborate arrangement of autumn flowers, interspersed with miniature pumpkins and artfully placed fall leaves, the work of my mother's personal florist, no doubt. The turkey is from a heritage farm in Vermont, my mother announced as the servers brought in the main course. The owner personally selects which birds go to which families. He only has 20 clients nationwide. She said this as if describing a rare vintage wine rather than poultry. Conversation flowed around me like water around a rock. My father and James discussed hospital politics. Emma and my mother exchanged notes on which families had been invited to the Westchester Christmas Gala. Stephanie regaled the table with stories of her twins' advanced reading abilities. I pushed food around my plate, occasionally nodding at Aunt Doris, who kept asking me if I was still doing that computer thing with the nurses. My phone vibrated against my leg with increasing urgency. But I couldn't check it without drawing criticism about my work addiction. "Allison," my mother's voice cut through my thoughts. "Your cousin Taylor was just asking what exactly it is that you do these days." All eyes turned to me, and I recognized the familiar setup. This was my mother's way of putting me on display, not to highlight my achievements, but to contrast them with the real success stories in the family. "I run a healthcare staffing platform," I explained, keeping my voice steady. "We connect nurses with hospitals experiencing staffing shortages. We're currently operating in all 50 states and have facilitated over 2 million shifts in the past year. So, it's like Uber for nurses?" Uncle Philip asked, chuckling as if he'd made a clever joke. "Not exactly," I started to explain. "We use predictive analytics too." Speaking of healthcare, my father interrupted. "James just received a grant to expand his research department. $10 million. He beamed at my brother. "That's fantastic, James," I said sincerely. My brother's work was important, even if the constant comparisons were exhausting. "Yes, the whole family is so proud," my mother added pointedly. "Allison's little business is cute too," Emma chimed in with faux supportiveness. "It's like, what do they call it? A side hustle?" "It's a full company," I corrected. "We have 78 employees now and..." "78? My father raised his eyebrows. "James oversees a department of 200. Different industries have different staffing needs," I tried to explain. "When are you going to start a family, Allison?" My grandmother Flora interjected, apparently bored with the career talk. "You're not getting any younger." Before I could respond to this familiar line of questioning, my sister Stephanie jumped in. "Some people just aren't cut out for balancing it all. I manage a surgical department and raise twins, but it takes a special kind of woman." I felt heat rising in my cheeks. "I'm focused on growing my company right now." "That's what women say when they can't find a husband," my cousin Whitney stage whispered to Emma. Just loud enough for me to hear. My phone buzzed again. "Rebecca, critical situation. Need to speak with you now." I excused myself to the bathroom, ducking into the hallway to call Rebecca. "What's going on?" I asked. "HealthStream Legal just called. They need the final signatures tonight, or the deal is delayed until after the holiday weekend, which could affect the stock announcement." "I can't leave right now," I whispered. "Can you bring the papers? I'll sign them quickly and you can take them back." "I'll be there in 20 minutes," Rebecca confirmed. When I returned to the table, the conversation had moved on to Emma's recent safari vacation, where apparently she had made besties with a member of European royalty. "Allison, you're so quiet," my mother noted as dessert was served. "Nothing interesting happening in your life?" This was my opening. I could tell them about the acquisition, the validation of everything I'd built. But something in my mother's tone told me she was setting me up. "Actually, there is something," I began. "Let me guess," James interrupted. "You've updated your website?" He and my father shared a laugh. "No. My company is actually in the process of." "Did you hear Madison got moved to the advanced reading group?" Stephanie cut in. "The teacher says she's reading at a 4th grade level." The familiar pattern of interruption and dismissal continued as I tried repeatedly to share my news. With each attempt, my frustration grew. Finally, my mother tapped her glass again. "I think it's time for our annual tradition of sharing what we're thankful for." "James, would you start?" One by one, my family members shared gratitudes that sounded more like humble brags. James was thankful for his opportunity to save lives daily. Emma was grateful for the platform to give back to those less fortunate. Stephanie appreciated her ability to have it all, career and family. When my turn came, I took a deep breath. "I'm thankful that my business has reached a point where—" "Allison," my mother interrupted, her voice sharp. "Must you always bring everything back to your little computer project? This constant focus on work is why you're alone. Why you don't fit in with this family." The table went silent. "Mom, I was just answering the question," I said quietly. "No, you were doing what you always do, trying to prove something." Her voice rose. "When will you accept that dropping out of medical school was the biggest mistake of your life? That this business fantasy is just prolonging your rebellion?" I stared at her, shocked by the directness of the attack, though I shouldn't have been. "Catherine," my father murmured, not in my defense but in concern about appearances. "No, Robert, it needs to be said." My mother's eyes locked on mine. "You're an embarrassment to this family." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. I felt them settle on my shoulders, familiar in their weight. Then came the reactions: James's poorly disguised smirk, Emma's theatrical sigh of second-hand embarrassment, Stephanie's head shake of disapproval. Aunts and uncles exchanged knowing glances. Cousins shifted uncomfortably, but with a hint of schadenfreude. And then, most painfully, they laughed. Not all at once, not uproariously, but in pockets around the table. Nervous chuckles. Snide snickers, the collective release of tension at my expense. "Always so dramatic, Catherine," Aunt Susan said with a laugh. "But she's not wrong, dear," she added, looking at me with false sympathy. "Remember when she thought she was going to be a doctor?" Uncle Philip chortled. "Well, not everyone has what it takes," my father added, delivering the final blow. As the laughter rippled around the table, the doorbell rang. While everyone turned toward the sound of the doorbell, I remained frozen in my seat, my mother's words reverberating through my mind. "You're an embarrassment to this family." The phrase wasn't new. I'd heard variations of it since the day I left medical school, but never so publicly. Never so brutally direct. "Excuse me," I managed to whisper, though no one was paying attention to me anyway. My father had sent one of the servers to answer the door, and the conversation had already shifted to my cousin Taylor's recent promotion at his law firm. I slipped away from the table and into the powder room off the main hallway. With shaking hands, I locked the door behind me and finally allowed myself to breathe. The face that greeted me in the mirror was flushed, eyes bright with unshed tears. I gripped the marble countertop, willing myself not to cry. At 32 years old, I was the founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. I made decisions affecting dozens of employees daily. I negotiated with hospital executives and venture capitalists. Yet one dinner with my family reduced me to the insecure girl I'd been at 24, desperately seeking approval I would never receive. A memory surfaced, my medical school graduation ceremony that never happened. I'd bought the frame for my diploma months in advance, imagining my father's proud face when I presented it to him. Instead, that frame remained empty, hidden in a box in my apartment closet, a relic of the life I was supposed to have. Another memory. My first major hospital contract signing. I'd called my mother, bursting with excitement, only to have her ask if I'd heard that James had performed surgery on a state senator. I remembered hanging up the phone and celebrating alone with a bottle of champagne in my tiny office, and the countless family gatherings where my achievements went unacknowledged while my siblings were placed on pedestals. The pointed questions about when I would settle down or find a real career. The comparisons that always left me lacking. My chest tightened, my breathing shallow. The familiar symptoms of anxiety crawled up my spine. I splashed cold water on my face, careful not to ruin my makeup. Heaven forbid I give my mother another reason to criticize my appearance. My phone buzzed again. "Rebecca, I'm here. The Uber just dropped me off." I texted back, "Coming." Two choices lay before me. I could leave now, sparing myself further humiliation. Or I could return to the table and endure the remainder of dinner. The first option was tempting, so tempting. I could text Rebecca to meet me at my car, sign the papers there, and drive back to my apartment in the city. I could cite a work emergency, which wouldn't even be a lie. But then I pictured my mother's satisfied expression when she learned I'd fled. "Always running away from challenges," she would say. Just like when she quit medical school. No, I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. I took 3 deep breaths, using the calming technique my therapist had taught me. In for 4 counts, hold for 7, out for 8. I repeated it until my heart rate slowed. My phone buzzed with another text from Rebecca. "Your mother answered the door. I told her I needed to see you urgently about work." She seemed displeased. Great. Another mark in the Allison prioritizes work over family column. As if I needed more reasons to be the black sheep. I checked my reflection one last time, straightened my shoulders, and unlocked the bathroom door. In the hallway, I could hear my mother's voice. The pitch she used when she was being performatively polite to someone she considered beneath her social station. "Yes, well, Allison is always working. Even on Thanksgiving. I suppose that's the life she's chosen." Rebecca's response was too quiet to hear, but knowing my assistant, it was unfailingly professional while giving nothing away. In the 3 years she'd worked for me, Rebecca had become more than an employee. She was my right hand, my confidant, and sometimes the only person who believed in my vision when doubt crept in. Taking another steadying breath, I walked toward the foyer where my mother stood with Rebecca. My assistant was dressed in her usual impeccable style, a tailored pantsuit and practical heels, clutching a leather portfolio that contained the documents that would change my life. "Allison, your employee is here," my mother said, emphasizing employee as if it were a questionable occupation. I told her we're in the middle of a family dinner. "Thank you, Rebecca, for bringing these over," I said, ignoring my mother's tone. "The documents can't wait until morning." Rebecca's eyes met mine, silently asking if I was okay. I gave a slight nod. "Sorry to interrupt your holiday, Miss Turner." The legal team was very clear about the deadline. My mother sighed dramatically. "Well, I suppose we should let you handle this. Urgent business matter. We'll be having coffee and dessert in the dining room when you're finished." She turned and walked away, her displeasure evident in every step. "Are you all right?" Rebecca whispered once my mother was out of earshot. "You look like I've been emotionally eviscerated by my family." That's their Thanksgiving tradition. I attempted a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Let's go to my father's study to sign these. As we walked toward the study, I felt a strange calm settling over me. In a few minutes, I would sign documents that validated everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed. The timing couldn't have been more perfect or more ironic. My father's study had always been forbidden territory growing up. Even now, entering the wood-paneled room felt like trespassing. Medical journals lined the built-in shelves. Interspersed with awards and photographs, James in his white coat, Emma at her wedding, Stephanie with her twins. I noted the absence of any photos of me with a resigned familiarity. They really did a number on you tonight, didn't they? Rebecca asked as she set her portfolio on the massive mahogany desk. After 3 years working together, she knew the signs of my post-family gathering distress. Nothing unusual, I said, trying to sound casual. Just the standard Allison is an embarrassment dinner conversation. Rebecca's expression hardened. She'd heard enough stories about my family to form her own opinions, though she maintained professional restraint in expressing them. Well, perhaps this will change the conversation. She opened the portfolio and removed a stack of documents, post-it flags marking signature lines. The final acquisition agreement, as approved by our legal team and HealthStream's executives. My hand trembled slightly as I took the pen she offered. This moment represented everything I'd worked for, validation of my vision, my persistence, my business acumen. And none of my family members even knew it was happening. Before you sign, Rebecca said, lowering her voice, there's something you should know. The news embargo lifted early. CNBC ran the story 20 minutes ago. The acquisition is public. I froze, pen hovering above the signature line. What? It wasn't supposed to break until tomorrow morning. Apparently, HealthStream's CEO gave an interview that went live earlier than planned. Social media is already buzzing. Your phone would be blowing up if you hadn't silenced it for dinner. My mind raced. If the news was public, my family could find out from someone else before I had a chance to tell them myself. The thought was both terrifying and oddly satisfying. What exactly did they report? I asked, signing the first document and moving to the next. Rebecca pulled out her tablet and read from the CNBC article. HealthStream acquires healthcare staffing platform NurseFlex for $75 million, marking one of the largest health tech acquisitions of the year. Founder and CEO Allison Turner will remain at the helm of the company, which will operate as a subsidiary of HealthStream. $75 million. The number still didn't seem real, even after months of negotiations. It represented not just the value of my company, but a complete refutation of every dismissive comment my family had ever made about my career choice. There's more, Rebecca continued. The Wall Street Journal is calling you a pioneer in healthcare staffing technology. Your college wants to feature you in their alumni magazine. And Forbes is requesting an interview for their 40 under 40-foot issue. As I signed the final document, the reality began to sink in. Not just the money, though that was certainly life-changing, but the recognition. The validation that couldn't be diminished or ignored. What are you going to tell your family? Rebecca asked as she carefully returned the signed documents to her portfolio. I stared at the bookshelves filled with my father's accomplishments, the walls decorated with my siblings' successes. For years, I'd craved just a small space among them, some acknowledgement that my path, though different, was equally valid. The truth, I said finally, though I doubt it will change anything. Maybe not for them, Rebecca replied. But it might change things for you. She was right. This moment wasn't about proving my worth to my family. It was about finally accepting it myself. About recognizing that their approval, which I'd sought for so long, was irrelevant to my success. Rebecca checked her watch. The car is waiting. I can take these back to the office and have them processed immediately. Or, she hesitated. Or what? A small smile played at her lips. Or I could wait 5 minutes and accompany you back to the dining room. The offer was tempting. Having Rebecca beside me when I dropped this bomb would provide emotional support I desperately needed. But it also felt like bringing reinforcements to a battle I needed to fight alone. Before I could decide, a knock sounded at the study door. My mother entered without waiting for a response, her expression a mixture of annoyance and forced politeness. "Allison, dessert is being served. Your business matter can surely wait until after the holiday." She glanced at Rebecca dismissively. "I'm sure your assistant understands the importance of family time." Rebecca met my mother's gaze with professional composure. "Actually, Mrs. Turner, I was just explaining to Allison that the news has broken publicly. I thought you might want to know that your daughter's company has just been acquired for $75 million. The color drained from my mother's face. What? HealthStream has acquired NurseFlex, I explained, finding strength in Rebecca's straightforward delivery of the news. The deal was finalized today. I'm signing the last of the paperwork now. My mother's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice. $75 million? That can't be right. Rebecca's tablet was still in her hand. Without a word, she turned it toward my mother, displaying the CNBC headline. I need to, your father should. My mother stammered, backing toward the door. We'll be in the dining room. When she was gone, Rebecca turned to me. I apologize if that was overstepping. She just seemed so condescending, dismissive, completely oblivious to the fact that her daughter has built something valuable. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had all evening. Don't apologize. That was therapeutic to witness. Rebecca smiled and gathered her things. What now? I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and headed for the door. Now we go back to the dining room, and I finally get to finish a sentence at a family dinner. As we walked down the hallway, Rebecca leaned close and whispered, "Congratulations, Allison. You've earned every penny of that $75 million and every second of what's about to happen in that dining room." For the first time that evening, I felt something close to excitement as I approached my family. The dining room fell silent as Rebecca and I entered. My mother had clearly shared some version of the news, judging by the varied expressions around the table: confusion, disbelief, and, in a few cases, calculating interest. My father sat straighter in his chair, studying me as if seeing me for the first time. "Allison, your mother says you have an announcement," he prompted, his tone carefully neutral. I remained standing, drawing strength from Rebecca's steady presence beside me. Yes, I was trying to share it earlier, but the conversation moved on. I kept my voice even. Professional, the same tone I used in board meetings. My company NurseFlex has been acquired by HealthStream for $75 million. The deal was finalized today. The silence deepened. James was the first to recover, a forced smile spreading across his face. Well, little sister hit the lottery. Congratulations on your payday. It's not a lottery, James. It's the result of 7 years of building a company that revolutionized healthcare staffing. I turned to Rebecca. This is my assistant, Rebecca Miller. She's been instrumental in this process. Rebecca nodded politely. It's nice to meet you all. Allison speaks of her family often. A small lie, but a kind one. In reality, I rarely discussed my family with anyone, the pain still too raw. $75 million, my Aunt Susan repeated, sounding dazed. That's substantial. My mother had regained her composure and was clearly strategizing how to incorporate this unexpected development into the family narrative. Well, we always knew Allison was clever with computers. How wonderful that someone recognized the potential in her project. It's not a project, Mother. It's a company that employs 78 people and serves over 600 hospitals nationwide. HealthStream is a publicly traded company with a market cap of over $2 billion. They don't acquire projects. The steel in my voice surprised even me. Of course, dear. My mother backpedaled. I simply meant. I know exactly what you meant, I interrupted, something I'd never dared to do before. You meant to diminish my achievement. Just as you've diminished every career choice I've made since leaving medical school. Allison. My father's voice held a warning. No, Dad. For once, I'm going to finish speaking. I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each family member. For 7 years, I've listened to comments about my little computer project and questions about when I would find a real career. I've sat through dinners where James, Emma, and Stephanie's achievements were celebrated while mine were ignored. I've endured comparisons, criticism, and tonight, public humiliation when my own mother called me an embarrassment to this family. Rebecca shifted slightly closer to me, a silent gesture of support. And the funny thing is, I continued, while you were all dismissing my work, I was building something valuable. Something that just sold for $75 million. Something that helps hospitals maintain proper staffing levels, which directly impacts patient care, a fact that should matter to the medical professionals in this family. Emma, never one to stay quiet when attention shifted away from her, jumped in. We're very happy for you, Allison. Truly. If we'd known how serious your business was. You would have what, Emma? Treated me with respect? Asked me about my work with genuine interest? Not laughed when Mom called me an embarrassment. The words came out sharper than intended, years of hurt finally finding release. My sister had the grace to look ashamed. That's not fair. We didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, I said simply. None of you did. Stephanie, always quick to defend family unity, interjected. We've all been busy with our own lives. Allison, you can't blame us for not following your business news. I don't blame you for not following business news, Stephanie. I blame you for not caring enough about me to listen when I tried to tell you myself. For changing the subject to your children's reading levels when I attempted to share something important. The words weren't meant to wound, merely to state facts. My father cleared his throat. Well, clearly we've underestimated you, Allison. This acquisition is impressive. Perhaps we should discuss investment opportunities for your newfound wealth. I know several financial advisors who. I have a financial team, Dad, I interrupted gently. And plans for the money that align with my values. Your values. My mother couldn't help herself. What exactly does that mean? It means I'll be expanding NurseFlex's scholarship program for nursing students. It means I'll be funding research into healthcare worker burnout, something I witnessed firsthand during my medical school rotations. And yes, it means I'll be buying a new apartment and taking an actual vacation for the first time in 7 years. Rebecca stepped forward. Allison, the car is waiting. We should get these documents back to the office. I nodded, grateful for the exit strategy she was providing. Thank you all for dinner. I need to go now. We have a press conference tomorrow morning. My mother rose quickly. But you haven't had dessert. And we haven't discussed how we'll announce this to our friends. The Hendersons' holiday party is next weekend, and, Mom, I said firmly, this isn't about you or the Hendersons or how this reflects on the Turner family. This is my achievement. Mine and my team's. And it's already been announced on CNBC, The Wall Street Journal, and soon, Forbes. The shock on her face was almost comical. In her world, news traveled through carefully crafted social announcements, not national media outlets. I'll be in touch after the holidays, I continued, already moving toward the door. Rebecca, shall we? As we walked out, my phone began buzzing with notifications, congratulatory messages from industry colleagues, interview requests from business publications, and, surprisingly, a text from James. We need to talk. Call me tomorrow. In the foyer, my mother made one last attempt. Allison, surely your assistant can handle the paperwork. Stay for coffee. Let's celebrate as a family now that we understand the significance of your achievement. I turned to face her, suddenly exhausted by the emotional whiplash of the evening. That's just it, Mom. You don't understand the significance. Not really. You see $75 million and suddenly my career choice is valid. But the work was always valuable, always meaningful, whether you recognized it or not. I stepped closer and lowered my voice. And I was never an embarrassment to this family. I was just different. I chose a different path. One you couldn't understand or control. That's not embarrassing, it's human. Without waiting for her response, I walked out the front door into the cool November night, Rebecca beside me, leaving behind the weight of expectations I'd carried for too long. The press conference the next morning was a blur of camera flashes, reporter questions, and handshakes with HealthStream executives. I delivered my prepared statement with confidence, discussing the future of NurseFlex under the HealthStream umbrella while maintaining our core mission of supporting healthcare workers. Rebecca managed the proceedings with her usual efficiency, directing questions, monitoring time, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. When it was over, she handed me a cup of coffee and my phone. 17 missed calls from family members, she announced. Your brother James has called 5 times. Your parents, for each. Emma twice, Stephanie once, and your Aunt Susan, apparently curious about the internet money you've made. I laughed. The sound lighter than it had been in years. Let them wait. For once, they can operate on my timeline. The days following Thanksgiving unfolded with a surreal quality. My apartment buzzed with deliveries, flowers from business associates, champagne from my legal team, and, surprisingly, a small orchid from my brother James with a note that simply read, I was wrong. Call me. I did call him, eventually. Our conversation was awkward at first, years of competitive tension, creating a barrier that couldn't be dismantled in a single phone call. I didn't understand what you were building, he admitted after several minutes of stilted small talk. I thought you were just rebelling. I was following my own path, I corrected gently. It just wasn't the one laid out for me. The medical journals are writing about your platform now, he continued. The impact on nurse retention, patient outcomes. It's impressive, Allison. Really impressive. Coming from James, this was tantamount to a standing ovation. Thank you. That means a lot. Mom and Dad are. He hesitated. They're processing. In their own way. I could imagine what that processing looked like, my mother informing her social circle that she'd always supported Allison's technological interests. My father claiming he'd recognized the entrepreneurial spark in me from childhood. They can process however they need to, I replied. But things will be different going forward. And they were. Over the next few weeks, I established clear boundaries with my family. I declined my mother's invitation to the Hendersons' holiday party, where I knew I would be paraded as the family's newest success story. Instead, I spent that evening hosting a celebration for my NurseFlex team, the people who had actually contributed to building the company. My father sent a text suggesting I consult with James about investment strategies, which I politely declined, explaining that my financial advisors had matters well in hand. When he pressed, mentioning family legacy planning, I was direct. Dad, I make my own legacy now. The holidays approached. And with them, the traditional expectations of family gatherings. My mother called to confirm my attendance at Christmas dinner. Actually, I won't be there this year, I told her. I'm taking some time off. First vacation in 7 years, remember. But it's Christmas, she protested. Family should be together. I'll be with family, I replied. Just not the one I was born into. I spent Christmas in a rented mountain cabin with Rebecca and her husband, my college roommate Brooke and her partner, and a few other close friends who had supported me through the lean years of building NurseFlex. We cooked together, exchanged thoughtful gifts, and shared stories without judgment or competition. It was the most peaceful holiday I'd experienced in memory. January brought new beginnings. I found an apartment in a neighborhood I'd always loved but could never afford. I established the NurseFlex Foundation with a $10 million endowment to provide scholarships for nursing students and research grants for healthcare worker wellness initiatives. And I started therapy again, this time focusing not on my anxiety, but on healing the deeper wounds inflicted by years of family dynamics. Spring arrived, and with it, an invitation to my parents' anniversary celebration. I considered declining but decided instead to attend, not out of obligation, but as a test of my newly established boundaries. The reception was held at the country club, naturally. I arrived alone, dressed in a designer suit that projected confidence rather than seeking approval. As I entered, I noticed the subtle shift in how people approached me, with curiosity, respect, even deference. The power dynamic had changed, not just with my family, but within their entire social circle. My mother air-kissed my cheek, her smile tight but trying. "Allison, darling. So glad you could make it. Everyone's been asking about you." "I'm sure they have," I replied pleasantly. My father nodded in acknowledgement, his usual criticism noticeably absent. "The foundation you started, it's doing good work. I've heard from colleagues." It wasn't an apology, but from my father. It was something close to respect. Throughout the evening, relatives who had ignored me at Thanksgiving now sought me out, asking about my business journey and whether I might consider advising their children on entrepreneurship. I answered politely but briefly, no longer seeking their validation. As the event wound down, my mother cornered me near the dessert table. "Will you be at Thanksgiving this year?" "I'm planning the seating chart early." I met her gaze directly. "I haven't decided yet, Mom. I'll let you know closer to the date." The freedom in that simple statement, the ability to choose my own traditions, to prioritize my own well-being, felt more valuable than any business acquisition. By the time fall arrived again, almost a year after that fateful Thanksgiving dinner, my life had transformed in ways beyond the financial. NurseFlex continued to thrive under HealthStream's umbrella, with our platform expanding into new markets. I'd taken 3 actual vacations, started dating someone who valued my ambition rather than feeling threatened by it, and developed friendships that nurtured rather than depleted me. When November approached, I made my decision. Instead of attending my parents' Thanksgiving dinner, I hosted my own, a gathering of friends, colleagues, and yes, chosen family. My apartment, with its view of the city's skyline, filled with laughter, honest conversation, and genuine connection. Rebecca arrived with her husband, carrying a bottle of champagne. "For the anniversary," she explained. 1 year since everything changed. I smiled, thinking of how far I'd come, not just in wealth or professional recognition, but in self-worth. The journey from seeking external validation to finding internal peace had been more valuable than any business deal. As we raised our glasses in a toast, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Your absence is felt today. The door remains open when you're ready." It wasn't an apology, but it was a beginning. Perhaps someday we would find a new way to be family, one built on mutual respect rather than conformity. But that would happen on my terms and my time. "What are you thinking about?" Rebecca asked, noticing my momentary distraction. I put my phone away and looked around at the people who had chosen to spend their holiday with me, people who saw me clearly and valued me completely. "I'm thinking about how sometimes the family we choose is the one that truly sees us," I replied, "and how gratitude feels different when it's not tangled with obligation." As conversations flowed around my table, honest, supportive, and free from judgment, I realized that success wasn't measured by acquisitions or millions. It was found in the courage to live authentically, to set boundaries, and to create connections based on mutual respect. That was the true acquisition, not of wealth, but of self-worth. And it was a deal I would never regret making. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family expectations to follow your own path? Or found yourself building a chosen family that supports your true self? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, Please hit that subscribe button and like this video so others can find it too. Remember, sometimes the most important person to impress is yourself. Thank you for listening. And I wish you the courage to write your own story, regardless of who understands it.